Hello, everybody. Hello, friends. Yes, I know. I agree. It's a little bit difficult once a week, but but maybe like me, you could work on it during the week. Get to know the Sanskrit better or something. All right. So for today, we're gonna talk about how Shiva teaches about Vishnu. So since it's been like 2 weeks, right? Because I think I got sick and canceled one of the last live stream. So it's been like 2 weeks since we did this. So let me catch you up on what's going on. You remember the last time we were doing daily streams, we had finished up the tale of Prithu, the great emperor. Then we finished up with him, his end of his life in the forest, doing meditation, etc. His death, then his children. And we came down, I think, 2 or 3 generations to someone named Prachinabhari, who was a great emperor that managed to get the whole entire planet cooperating in the Vedic culture so that they were all producing the kind of grasses and agriculture and things that are required for Vedic ceremonies. That was one of the marks of it. Anyway, his children were the Prachetas, and he asked them to, grow up and have babies. So they went to perform penances or disciplines. They went to perform disciplines so that they could have the tejas, or the power to make really significant children. So they were children from Prachinabhari and the river goddess. So they went towards the water to perform their disciplines. When they got to the water, they found this amazing body of water that they were surprised by. And from it emerged Rudra, aka Shiva. And then Shiva says, I know why you guys are here. And because you're you, I really like you. And because I'm me, you really like me. Because you're you means because I know you're trying to please Vishnu. Because you're trying to do what your father is trying to tell you to do. And your father is all about Vishnu Yagya. And that's why I want to help you. And I'm sure you want my help because you know that I'm also into that same thing. I try to do I do what I do as my seva to Vishnu. So they said, now you guys want to perform discipline or penance or something to empower yourself to generate amazing children. So I'll teach you it's not a mantra, but it's like a recitation. It's called a japa. There's a difference between a mantra and a japa. A japa is anything that you recite. It could be prose, it could be anything. A mantra is a poem, and it has to have certain meters to it. There's only certain meters. Meters means like, long syllable, short syllable, short syllable, short syllable, short syllable, long syllable, short syllable, long syllable, short syllable, long syllable, short syllable, per line. Something like that. So Shiva says, I'm going to teach you a japa of a bunch of shlokas, a bunch of couplets. And if you meditate on this, you'll get what you want. So that's the catch-up. Ketchup and mustard, that's the catch-up. That has caught us up to where we're going to start today. Let me make sure I've got the right spot on my text. Yeah. I need to go a little bit past this. Okay, so beautiful. The princes, who are the Prachetas, they folded their hands respectfully to hear the words of all attractive Shiva. as they addressed Narayana. The words of all attractive Shiva address Narayana, so they get very interested in it. Narayana is another name for Vishnu. And now here's what Rudra says. Let me get Sanskrit for this too. You're going to like this, and it's kind of important. Just give me a second to find that. Well, so it's 24th chapter of 4th division. We're pretty far down. Here we go. 31, 32, 33. The text number is 33. Sri Rudra Vacha Tam Ta Atma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu Me Bhavataradhasa Radham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha. It's beautiful. Sri Rudra Uvacha Chitam Ta Atma Vidvarya Swastaye Swastirastu Me Bhavataradhasa Radham Sarvasma Atmane Namaha. So what that means, beautiful Rudra said, your auspiciousness conquers all, bringing supreme auspiciousness to those who know themselves. You are the blessed lover. You are the beloved lover, the self of all. Nama. This is his intro. This is Shiva's intro, which is to address to Narayana in general, not a specific form of Narayana. It's applicable to any form of Narayana. So he says, it's very interesting that he says, your auspiciousness conquers all, bringing supreme auspiciousness to those who know themselves. He says, Atmavit. Atmavit Varya Swastiye Swastirastu Me. Your auspiciousness conquers all, bringing supreme auspiciousness to those who know themselves. Why is it to those who know themselves? Because those who don't know themselves don't have any interest in it. They think that it's irrelevant to themselves. People who don't know themselves want power. Or some form of power, like money, or beauty, or strength, or knowledge, or detachment, or fame and celebrity. As with people who don't know who they really are. They want those types of things, various forms of power, because they think that they need to control the world and people if they're going to be happy. And if they can't control the world and people, then they're at risk. So they need these 6 different forms of power. People who do know themselves, they know that you don't need power because you can't control the world. What you just need is actual happiness. You don't need power to get happiness. You just need happiness. And happiness is the taste or the flavor or the actual shell of love. So people who actually know themselves, they only want love. So that's what Narayana or Vishnu deals in. He doesn't deal in giving people power. You'll notice tons and tons and tons and tons of tales of people going to Durga, or people going to Agni, or people going to Indra, or people going to Shiva, or people going to Brahma to get power. And they get power. You don't find many stories, if any, of people going to Vishnu to get power. You find people going to Vishnu to get help for their mistakes, or you find people most of the time going to Vishnu because they love Vishnu and they want to experience the love more fully. So Vishnu deals with love. Most people don't give a damn about love, to be honest. People that think they are interested in love are just interested in the beauty segment of power. Keeping people wrapped around their fingers and things like that. So only those people who actually know themselves really have any interest in Vishnu or bhakti. That's why it's the fifth goal of life, seldom even discussed. Because it only comes to those who already have some form of moksha or enlightenment. So now, that's his introductory statement. Oh, and the other thing that's really cool is this term. He says, aradhasa radham. So you got the word radha in there. Radha means to adore. To express love is radha. So it's aradhasa radham. Is the beloved lover. Vishnu is the beloved, but he's not just a black hole receiving everybody's love. He's the bright sun giving off the love. So he's the lover that everybody loves, that every self-knowing person loves. Okay, so why? Sarvasme Atmane. Because he's the actual true self. And then Shiva says Nama. Then he's going to repeat that basic word throughout every single statement that he makes, Nama, which is the basis for the famous word Namaste. Nama means respect, or literally it means not self, na-ma, not me, which means importance given to somebody else. Okay? Let's see if we got any questions. Or we'll move on. The verses are then going to get really interesting. What if you want power to tell people about Vishnu? It's okay. But I don't think you'll be able to tell people about Vishnu correctly if you think that it requires power. Because it doesn't require power to tell people about Vishnu. It requires love to tell people about Vishnu. Well, you're going to tell people about something you don't understand? How are you going to tell people about something you don't understand? What you'll wind up giving to people is the idea that they can get their power from Vishnu too, which is wrong. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Previous, it doesn't mean that if you have a natural inclination to become powerful and use it for good things, that's good. That is good. But don't forget, the Bhagavatam is talking about ultimate issues. Ultimate good. All right. Yeah, Shiva is telling you what he meditates on. He's sharing with the Prachetas. He's sharing what his meditation to them. So far we've covered one verse of it. Now let's see the next verse. I would like to cover at least 4, because they kind of go in that kind of a segment. So the next 4 statements that he's going to do, now he's going to address different ways that Vishnu manifests in the world and in a person. Particularly in a person, right? Because the Prachetas are trying to empower themselves for a service. It's interesting. So they need to, what Shiva's trying to teach them is to understand Vishnu as the essence of each part of their own being. So he's going to first of all address Vishnu in 4 components as he pertains to the 4 parts of the inner self. The 4 parts of the inner self are the mind, the intellect. The mind is the emotional inner self, the intellect is the rational inner self, and then there's the ahankar, which is sometimes called the ego, which is actually the ambitious inner self. And then there is the chitta, which is the part of the inner self that is reflective. It's the actual conduit for the consciousness of the soul. So it's like just the glass to the consciousness, the glass that the consciousness peers through. So those are the four aspects of the inner self. And Shiva is going to address the Chaturvyuha, the fourfold Vishnu, that in relation to those four parts. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. Vasudeva is the chitta, or the actual consciousness projected into external reality. Then there's Sankarshan, which is the ahankar, the motivating force, the ambition, the ego. And then there's Aniruddha or Pradyumna. We'll find out when we get there, or I could just scroll. Pradyumna is the intellect, and then Aniruddha is the mind. So let's see what these... It's not four texts, actually. He gives one text to Vasudeva, and then he gives one sentence to each of the other three. Okay, ready? Vasudevaya Namah. The lotus from your navel is the true self of every object and every sense. For your consciousness, yet ever peaceful, self-contained and self-delighted. Let's see this one. Nama Pankajanabhaya Bhutta Sukshmendiyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise. So he's saying the most important part of the prayer is this, really. The most important part of the recitation is this. You are the true self of every object in every sense. Bhuta Sukshmendriya Atmane. You're the actual identity, the true being of every bhuta, everything that exists, and every Sukshmendriya, every sense that perceives it, and every capacity for sense perception. The essence of it all is you as this, under the name of Vasudeva. Vasudeva means consciousness, the divine substance. Literally, Vasudeva is like divine substance, which is consciousness. Because consciousness is the essence of perception. Consciousness is the essence of what your senses do. Consciousness is the essence of the object being perceived. So the deity of consciousness, the divinity of consciousness, is the most important, essential thing in the world. And expressing this, all of these things, all of the conscious powers and the sense organs and the types of bodies that we can have and the types of things that we can perceive all come from a lotus flower that grew out of his navel. That's like the physical representation of this metaphysical fact. The lotus from your navel is the true self of every object and every sense, for you are consciousness, yet ever peaceful, self-contained, and self-delighted. So Shiva's implying a request here. His request is, since I'm part of you, because I'm born from the one who is born from your navel lotus. From the navel lotus you get Brahma, and then from Brahma's forehead you get Shiva. So Shiva's saying, well, I'm part of you. And then from Brahma you get X, Y, Z, 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 and you get you and me also. So it applies to everybody. Because I'm a part of you, may my own consciousness be as peaceful and self-contained and delighted as yours, by experiencing you as the essence of every experience. Okay? Any questions about that? Bardo says, where does the desire to tell everyone about Vishnu come from? Isn't that an expression of ego? Could be, but maybe it's an expression of excitement or love. if you want power to impact society for better, is Vishnu not really pro this idea? He's pretty pro this idea, but it's not uttam bhakti. It's not the highest thing. It's still based on the idea that power is important and even society is really important. I got news for you. Society is constantly going to go up and down. It's constantly going to be suffering and not suffering in society. It's constantly going to be enjoyment and not enjoyment. Nobody can fix this because this is the way it is, because of the way people act. That doesn't change. So the idea of turning the world into a heaven or something, it's ignorant of the fact that the world needs to be what it is because people are the way they are. So the idea of, really needing power to help the world is a little misguided. It's not the worst thing you could want for sure, but it's a little bit misguided. What's up, Mitch? I don't know what your question is. Ayush. Angelique says, blast, I'm late. That's a great expletive, blast. Are these for Sangya, which you're explaining? Are these for Sangya? Parallels to the four for young? No. No, unless I don't know about it. Not as far as I know. All right, next one. Sankarshanaya Sukshmaya Durantayantikaya cha. That's a cool word, right? Sankarshanaya Sukshmaya Durantayantikaya cha. Durantayantikaya cha. Namo Vishwa Prabodhaya Pradyumnyantaratmane. So here he gives one sentence to each form. He says, Sankarshanaya Nama. Though beyond beginning or end, you integrate and disintegrate the essence of all things. It's very interesting. So Shiva's the request, what Shiva is implying in this statement is, you are Sankarshan. Sankarshan literally means something like gravity, something that pulls things together. You are the force that integrates, you are the force that integrates. What's the word for integrate? Antaka. That's the Durantaka is integration and Antaka is disintegration. So you're the force that integrates and disintegrates all things. Well, gravity, it pulls all things together, but then that eventually makes things explode. So, but the ultimate form of gravity, physical gravity is one thing, but the ultimate form of gravity is consciousness. Consciousness is the thing that's pulling structures together to make forms, to express itself and to have its experiences. And then when it's tired of the expression and the experience, it disintegrates it to pull something new together. And that form of consciousness is called ahamkara, ego or ambition. It's the function of consciousness which is to want things. So it's the function of consciousness in giving rise to wants that causes things to be pulled together and manifest as forms and then to be blown apart so that those forms no longer exist. Although consciousness itself is beyond the beginning of the forms or the end of the forms, it's the thing which pulls the forms together. Right? So Shiva is saying, you're the force that integrates and disintegrates all things, which is ego. So please disintegrate my ego from ignorance and integrate it with reality. I like that one. Sankarshanaya namaha, though beyond beginning or end, you integrate and disintegrate the essence of all things. Sankarshanaya sukshmaya duranta kantakaya cha. The next one is Namo Vishwa Prabodhaya Pradyumnyan Daradmane. Pradyumnaya namaha, you are the inner self, Antaratmana, the means by which we perceive anything. Vishwa Prabodhaya, the means by which we perceive things. So here he's saying, since you're the means by which we perceive things, Prabodha. Prabodha means to wake up, or just to experience, to open your eyes and see something. So the implied statement from Shiva is, you're the force by which we understand things. So consciousness has, first of all, consciousness is the divine substance, and then it can project itself outward to have experiences. That's the Vasudev thing, is the way that it can project itself. Then Sankarshan is the ambition that it then acquires. And that ambition acts as the force which pulls all things together and then disintegrates all things. And then when it pulls something together, it has the faculty to explore it, experience it. That is, sorry, there's some weird noises coming from down the hall. My son with his weird, mad scientific things that he's doing. So when that force of consciousness, which is ambition, pulls things together, then it thereby manifests another force, which is called intellect, or the ability to explore and perceive and understand the experience. It awakens, or it brings a full perception. Well, what Shiva is advising is that this perception should be directed back to the essence of the thing. Instead of trying to explore the external form of life and reality, try to explore the internal essence of it. Instead of having ambition to manifest things in external experiences, have ambition to experience the inner essence of reality. And then one more statement. Let me see what's up with the chat. Is the lotus an expression of Prakriti? Yes, Karen. It's the actual essence of it. Johnny, let's see what kind of transcendental statement Johnny has to make. So the object of consciousness is trance consciousness, or that other order of being. It should be. Or these non-differentiations beyond the jiva capacities. It's very difficult to understand, Johnny. Did I say that? Could be like Narada and go around singing the glories of Vishnu. Yeah, that's better. That's how you actually bring people awareness of Vishnu. Is bhakti then the agency in which the jiva is released or liberated from? Yes. You can remember that from the very first statements in the Bhagavatam. Is the inner essence more like feelings? No. It includes feelings, but it includes everything. It's the inner essence of everything. It's not just the inner essence of feelings. It's the inner essence of texture, color, everything. So the inner essence has all sort of specificity. In other words, we're trying to understand reality, and we're trying to experience reality divorced from the emanator of the reality, or substituting ourselves as the emanator of the reality. That's how we're trying to experience life now. Shiva's recommendation is try to see reality hovering around its actual emanator. Keep it connected to its core. Now, I'm so frustrated with this camera. It keeps making me look like I have like, I don't know. It's so weird the way it deals with the lighting. All right, I'll give you one more statement. Another statement from Shiva. Now this is for Aniruddha. Namo namo niruddhaya rishikeshen driyatmane. Namo namo niruddhaya rishikeshen indriyatmane. Then the next sentence is something else. So what that means is, Aniruddhaya nama, you are the true form of the mind, which is the master sense. Well, there you also incidentally get an understanding of what the inner being of this person is, the inner parts of our body, by which I don't mean your physical organs, but the non-physical body. The non-physical body. First of all, the first layer of the non-physical body is the conduit to the physical body. That's my daughter waking up over there. So the conduit to the physical body is called the manas, or the mind. It's the master sense. All of the senses funnel information into it. And then it is the way that the intellect can funnel directions out towards the physical body and senses. That's the first layer of the non-physical self, is called mind. The way that you experience it is, it has its reactions to things. And actually, it's not really directly being funneled. The data from the senses is actually directly being funneled to the intellect, which is the prajumna. And that intellect is prabodh, or comprehending the data. So for example, if you look at a fruit, let's say you look at an apple, the information comes in through your eyes, says a bunch of colors and shapes and etc. And then the intellect is the one that says, that's an apple on a table 3 feet away. And it has no brown spots and it looks really yummy. So the intellect is the one that comprehends that that's an apple, it's not a tennis ball, etc., etc. If you just take a raw feed from the nerves from the eyes, it's just like, it sounds like a fax machine. But the intellect is the one that makes the fax machine blips and bleeps into something meaningful. Then it gives that meaningful digestion of the data to the mind, and then the mind reacts to it. And that's what we call emotions. The reaction of the mind to their perception is the emotion. It will have some version of happiness or sadness in relation to what the intellect tells it it's experiencing. And then that will push back into the intellect as an attraction or aversion, which means either go closer or get further away from the thing. And then the intellect will funnel back to the moving senses, how to move the body away or towards the object. Then that's kind of like a closed circuit, right? Your eye goes into the intellect, and then the intellect gives it to the mind, and then the reaction back from the mind comes back through the intellect and then moves your body. But the basis upon which the mind feels happy or sad about something is determined by some lower level of the inner self, of the non-physical self, which is called ahamkara, or the ambition self, the ego. It's not really the ego, it's the ambition self. So that will say, this is an apple, that's irrelevant. I have no concern for an apple, ignore it. Or it'll say, that's an apple, that's exactly what I was looking for. I'm hungry right now and I want a fruit that's good for me. Right? Based on what the ambitions are in the ego, the mind will feel happy or sad about things. That's why happiness is defined as the fulfillment of a desire. It's when the senses experience something which fulfill the ego. So the third inner layer of the self is that thing that people call ego, which is actually your repository of ambitions, the things which you want to accomplish. Then the innermost layer of the non-physical self is like the screen on a computer, which is the conduit through which consciousness observes all these things. Okay, so we think that we're actually interacting with objects like a computer or a microphone, a camera, but we're quite removed actually from those objects. We don't experience the objects in their raw form. We experience the intellect's digestion of the object, which is then presented to the mind, and we experience the mind's emotional response to it, which is based on the ambitions that we have, and all of it is experienced through the projection of our consciousness. Then what is it that's projecting into the consciousness? What is it that's projecting the consciousness towards these things? That's the self. That's not a body or a layer that's acquired. That's the true being. So what Shiva's doing with what Shiva's teaching the Prachetas right now is how to, let's say, spiritualize all these components of yourself, or how to see all these components of yourself in the context of divinity. How to see that Vishnu is the actual essence of all these components. Since Vishnu is actually even the essence of the self. Vishnu is the essence of the ability for the self to project its consciousness. Vishnu is the essence of the ability to have ambitions, to bring things together or take things apart. Vishnu is the essence of the ability to comprehend things. And Vishnu is the essence of the ability to feel happy or sad, and therefore averse or attracted. So that's as far as we'll go today. He's going to go now beyond that. He's going to go into the physical body. He's going to deal with different components in the physical body and physical things, and have the same kind of structure with it, showing Vishnu as the essence of that, or showing consciousness or the supreme consciousness as the essence of that. And comprehending that is what empowers us to act in a divine manner. So you don't really need to, this is really a better answer for Alf. It's ignorant to search for power. Because you don't need power when you have a battery. The power comes from the battery. So don't search for the power, search for the battery. So similarly, you don't really need to search for power, you need to search for Vishnu. When you have Vishnu, the power is at your disposal. So let's see what else is in the chat, and then we'll wrap it up after that. Thank you, Slasher. Let's see what we got here. Who's soul searching? Who are you asking? I'm not Scorpio in any way, but I have a lot of 8th house stuff. Yeah, right? I'm like turning into white light. I don't really like it too much. Again, could we say this? The Jiva gets bhakti, it's game over. Basically, the game changes, really. Where does the chitta part of identity come into play, except for being a karma storage or a record that holds together the line of successive incarnations? What's it for? That's what it's for. It's just like saying, you see this wire? Let me see. You see this wire? This was the wire from my microphone to the computer. So there's a thing, it's plugged into the computer. So what part does that place where it plugs in, it's called a port. What part does that port play in the whole transmission of sound? That's the part that chitta plays in your experience of reality. Chitta is the way that consciousness can interface with prakriti, or the stuff of experience. Consciousness, which is the experiencer, interacts with the stuff of experience through a port, and the port is called chitta. You might think that that port is not that important. I mean, it's the microphone that's really important, but the port's pretty damn important. Angelique kind of got it. Can we pin each part for a particular planet in a chart? Yes, actually. However, you'll get some duplications. Because astrology is more practical. It's more concerned with events. But you will, if you want to do this with astrology, what you'll do is you'll have sun. The sun technically is the Atma. But the Atma has no role in karma, except that it's the initiator of it. So it's very rarefied or theoretical that the sun is the Atma. But the sun is the Atma, and then the moon is the chitta. The moon is the thing that the sun reflects through, right? And then you're going to see the sun will take another role as the ahankar, which is the practical implementation of the Atma. The practical implementation of the Atma is the I-defining collection of ambitions. I want this. I want this. That's what the sun is, the collection of our ambitions, which we define as the ego. So sun is Atma, but it's also, in more practical application, it's actually ahamkar. Moon is chitta, but again, like it's just, chitta is just a port. What does chitta do? So again, chitta, the practical application of moon is not chitta. Chitta has no real function or role in anybody's karma. The moon's practical role is manas. And then the bridge between the moon and the sun is buddhi, which is Mercury, Buddha. So if you want to understand these four inner parts of the self in terms of astrology, the moon is chitta and manas, and the sun is ahankara, and Mercury is buddhi. Then Mars and Venus are the two categories of senses. Venus is the category of sense which brings information inward to Mercury, and Mars is the category that takes information outward and acts upon it, takes information from Mercury and acts upon it. So Mars is called the karmendriya, the working sense, the active sense, like your hands, your feet, your speech organs. And Venus is the gyanendriya sense, which gives information to Mercury, like your eyes, your ears, etc. Then after that, you've got Jupiter and Saturn, which is the growth and the decay, the expansion and the contraction of the whole unit. Jupiter, of course, being the growth, Saturn being the decay. That's how you map all these things. That's in my book. Like Slasher Tape said, she ordered the beautiful, I think she or he, a beautifully rational philosophy of astrology. It's in there. Shame on you for not knowing that. Let's see what else. Do different lifetimes and deeds fine-tune that non-physical self and subconscious ambition to want better or divine things? Well, you'll find if you read Gita 16 and 17 explains that the those chapters 16 and 17 explain that the living entities wander sometimes closer towards the root of reality, sometimes further away from it. It's not linear or consistent which direction we move. We wander around. Sometimes we're moving closer to getting into harmony with the root of reality. Sometimes we're moving further away from it. What you want to do is be conscientious about it and consistently move towards it. But it's a conscientious effort. Ayush has an interesting question. These people, the Prachetas, had to do some worldly stuff, make kids. So why is Shiva telling them to reach Vishnu and transcend to Vaikuntha and not telling them the way to produce some children? Well, first of all, you don't need to teach anybody how to make kids. Everybody knows you put the thing in the other thing and then you shake it around, and then if you're lucky, you get a kid. You don't have to, that's not like, you don't need to meet Shiva to figure that out. The other thing is that you're wrong. He's not telling them to reach Vishnu and transcend to Vaikuntha. He's telling them, you know, you're going to use your body to make babies. You better understand what your body is. You better understand what your mind and your body and your senses are. Then you'll have the ability to use them with divine freedom. Your body is Vishnu. Meditate on that. Your senses are Vishnu. Your intellect is Vishnu. Your emotions are Vishnu. Meditate on that. So he's not really, you don't really have to teach somebody how to make a baby, but you need to teach them how to do something amazing. And if you want to do something amazing, you have to be in touch with the root of reality to do it. Samurai, that's the, she asked for a fast recap of what Shiva said. That's the recap. He's saying, I advise you guys to meditate upon how each aspect of yourself is ultimately Vishnu. That's what he's telling you. So meditate upon how your consciousness is Vishnu. Meditate upon how your ego is Vishnu. Meditate upon how your intellect is Vishnu. And from Vishnu, request full use of it. What else we got? Kermit, what's up? Kermit says software equals Atma, hardware equals chitta. No. No, the Atma is not software. Hardware equals body, hardware equals physical body, software equals non-physical body, user equals Atma. That's kind of a more accurate analogy, I think. Bardo wants 2 Bhagavatam sessions per week. I have to be less lazy if we do that. I am going at a particular pace in translating this stuff. Melissa says, thank you for continuing to do it. Thank you, Melissa. Angelique thought I gave a good description of how you make babies. Yeah, that is cool. Shiva is like the quiet kid in class who doesn't speak much, but when he does, he does. Catherine answered Bardo nicely. Okay, good. Done? We're done. It's like many people actually realize I do too many things at once. So we can only go at a certain pace with each one of them. Thank you, Mary. All right, guys. So next week we'll go on to the most of the remaining statements I think that Shiva's going to give. Thank you very much, everybody. See you then. And on Tuesday we'll do the houses with Paul Deepika. A little bit more about that.